for today, which is someone sending me a message, 29th of December, 2022. I'm Gads. This is Ragnarok Survival. Excuse me while I move the camera around there for you folk on Instagram. And this is the SitRep, the situation report, where I go through news stories from the past couple of days, things that I find interesting from the perspective of preparing. So the assumption is that you're a preparedness-minded person. Excuse my giant hands getting in the way of the screen there for YouTube, but I'm just trying to move the Instagram camera around. Yeah, so we have a look at these stories and we go, what's happening in the world? What's happening in my neck of the woods? My neck of the woods being Australia. So, I usually try and slide in at least one or two Australian, New Zealand-centric stories. That being that there's not a lot out there for the prepping individual who lives down under. But that's what we're doing today. First question of the day is coming from SpiceGale27. What is the meaning of the Latin phrase you sign off with? Cheers. Semper Paratus. It's a rough translation. Like it's not the exact. I mean, the exact translation, I guess, would be forever. Yeah, I guess forever prepared, or well, that's what I take it to mean anyway. Stay prepared is what I sort of take it. I would have used the term be prepared or always prepared. Be prepared. That's what I grew up with as a little cub. Dib, 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 dob, 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 as a scout with my toggle. That is the motto of the Scouts, or at least it was. I don't know. I assume it is nowadays. Sir Baden-Powell came back from the war, looked at his society and said, my children, the children of my society are weak. Not weak, but are unprepared. They're unprepared for the rigors of the world. He went over to war and he found that the society was sort of building people who weren't really ready to fight a war. So these young men were going over there and he said, a lot of them don't know knots. They've never fired a gun. They've never butchered an animal. They've never stayed out, in rough conditions, camping overnight for many days. So I'm going to start preparing our children to do that, not with the perspective of getting them ready for war. That was sort of like the just in case, I guess. It's just for the perspective of having well-rounded human beings. So Baden-Powell started this initiative called the Scouts. And his motto was be prepared. And that was exactly it. He wanted these kids to grow up into adults who were prepared for whatever life could throw at them. Be it a war, which, eventually did happen and will continue to happen. And I think about that, and I think about where we are right now. And how much, like, if we took someone, let me think. He came back from the Boer War. So this is pre-World War I. If we took someone from that time, a child from that time, and a child from our time, and put them in a fight. No, let's say they're two adults, right, from that time, and an adult from this time, and put them in a fight. I wonder who would win. I kind of think they would win, the elder of those two options. And even then he was concerned about the preparedness level of human beings. So I think it's got much, much worse as we've gone along. So short answer is Semper Paratus means be prepared, or forever prepared, or stay prepared. That's what this whole thing is about us just being more prepared. All right, I've just yammered on for 4 minutes about Scouts and Latin. So let's jump into this. Peter Rouse says, guess you missed the new laws Jacinta just passed very quietly, digital ID being one of them. Yes, I haven't got any news on this. Didn't see anything about this at all. So I would be very interested to read up on that. If you want to send me some links, Peter, that would be muchly appreciated, because that's a disturbing trend if that's what's happening there in New Zealand. Unfortunately, I could see Australia following suit in the not too distant future. I do have some New Zealand story that came up, though. It's about volcanoes. It's about a specific volcano, Taranaki Maunga. Every New Zealander right now just went, oh, bro, Oh, that's not how you say it, bro. Taranaki Maunga. I don't know. That's the Aussie version of saying however you would say that in New Zealandese. But it's a volcano, and it erupted. So they've been doing a bit of research on this, and erupted about 3,300 years ago. And it was a big eruption. It was a huge eruption. The title of the story, this is from mainstream media too, so this is from 9 News, oddly enough. The explosive eruption of Taranaki Maunga would have erased everything. So they're saying that 3,300 years ago, that this eruption of this particular this particular volcano would have erased everything. Could have been, quite a large one, is what they're saying. They're also saying it could happen again. In fact, they're saying it is overdue. I don't know, did they read the use-by date on the volcano? I'm not sure exactly how they come up with this, because I always see these sorts of things. Oh, we're overdue for an earthquake. We're overdue for a volcano. I'm like, okay, I get it that, there is a kind of a pattern-ish that goes on, but they are relatively random events. But yeah, anyway, overdue for it. So another big one could happen here. Certainly New Zealand does have volcanoes that do erupt, and we've had one in the last couple of years that erupted that was, covering the news for days. When was that? Last year or earlier this year? Time. It's slipping away from me. Peter says it's called Mount Egmont as well. So that's the particular place they're talking about. Hello to you, Shelley208 on YouTube. Thanks for joining me today. Thanks to everyone who's joining me from either Instagram, YouTube, or listening to this on the podcast version afterwards. Record it and then upload it. Because, I don't know, you can't really interact on a podcast, so I don't really see the point. Morning to you, Reagan, on YouTube. Right, what other news do we have happening here? Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov issues ultimatum to Ukraine for your own good. Like this term here, it bugs me whenever I see something like this in the news. Whenever somebody says something like this to me, or whenever I see government saying this sort of thing for your own good, for health reasons, to protect us, it's just like red flags everywhere for me. I'm just like, whoa, this is bad. Something bad is happening here. So again, this is just another Lavrovian utterance, which there have been many, where Lavrov comes out and he says something which is, I always read it as inflammatory. There's very little that he comes out and says, from my perspective at least, that is actually calming down the situation. I would say Lavrov, above almost anyone else on the Russian side of what we're getting from the Russian side, is akin to most of what the Western side is. So I see the Western side as super inflammatory. I see our governments pushing towards this war and not backing down at all, not even really entertaining the idea of a peace treaty or, some other way other than the annihilation of Russia. That's what they're pushing, which if you actually can see what's going on and you look at how Russia's playing this out, what they are actually pushing for is war. So essentially World War III. Lavrov's kind of the mirror image of that on the Russian side. Not really the mirror image. He's not saying the opposite. He's saying the exact same thing. I guess that is a mirror image, right? Just the Russian version. So more of this, he's saying that and coming out. And what we're starting to see, I'm piecing a few of these things together within the Russian space of what they're putting out. There's been a few utterances and issues of media output from their headshed recently in the past week or so. And what we're starting to see is a slightly coherent plan coming out, which isn't just we're going to wipe over Ukraine until they're still saying denazification of Ukraine, whatever. But they are saying things like Western Ukraine, and then whatever happens to Eastern Ukraine isn't really their problem. So they're kind of laying out, they're saying, hey, we're not really interested in all of Ukraine. What they appear to be interested in is the coast down the bottom, even into Moldova, and that's why I've been talking about that recently. All that coastal part, the Crimea, and then possibly up around into Belarus too. And I've got a story about Belarus too here. But it doesn't, from what they're issuing, it doesn't look like they're that interested in places like Kiev. Whereas if you listen to someone like Zelensky, he's saying that Russia's going to roll over Kiev. They're going to destroy our entire country. I mean, they've destroyed the country as far as a coherent working government goes. But yeah, it doesn't look to me from the outside that the plan is total dominance over Ukraine. But what do I know? I'm just a dude sitting in a room here, looking at it from the other side of the world. Belarus confirms Russian nuclear-capable weapon systems are now operational within the country. So more blowing up through the roof of Belarus. Belarus being sucked much more into this, what we call it, the theater of war now. That it looks like Belarus is going to become part of this. Anyway, this is all geopolitical stuff. It's all interesting because this is all continuing, as I continue saying, pushing us towards World War III. Bigger implications to come. All right, let's get somewhere else. A startup company has come out. This is coming from technologyreview.com. A startup has come out and said it's beginning releasing particles into the atmosphere in an effort to tweak the climate. The company's called Make Sunsets. Pause on that. Anyone been to LA? I've been to LA a number of times. One thing about LA is it's got like these really amazing sunsets that are going on there. Like quite often, more often than not, I reckon, that I've been there, there's a beautiful sunset going on. And I asked someone about it one day. I said, well, like, what's the go? It's like, because we're looking out over the ocean. We don't really have this in Perth, though. It's the smog. It's the pollution that comes out of that city that actually creates the atmospheric conditions for this really nice looking sunset. So kind of disturbing thing there that this horrific pollution is what creates this nice little picture at the end of the day. Now, and that's what made me think of that. This company called Make Sunsets. Make Sunsets is already attempting to earn revenue for geoengineering, a move likely to provide widespread criticism. So it's already launching weather balloons that may have released reflective sulfur particles into the stratosphere, potentially crossing a controversial barrier in the field of solar geoengineering. So that's some interesting stuff that's happening there with these sorts of companies. Where's the regulation on this? Who owns that space, the stratosphere, and things like that? And on note, I want to make this very, very clear. I don't think this is a good idea in any way, shape, or form. I don't think we should be messing with such things. This might be just my Luddite talking here, but I think we should just steer clear of on purpose pumping of particles into our atmosphere. We're probably doing enough of that just by the way we're living. Trying to chase something is always a losing battle, just historically speaking. And I always bring out the example. There's many, many different examples I can bring out of this, but the main example I bring out is cane toads in Australia, where settlers came to Australia and took over Australia, decided this is a good climate to grow sugarcane because sugar makes dollar bills, so I'm going to do that. Planted a lot of sugar. Along with that came a little bug, the sugarcane beetle. How do we get rid of sugarcane beetles? What's their natural predator? The cane toad. Cool. Let's introduce cane toads. Cane toads got introduced on purpose to chase something that we'd already messed up. So we're chasing our tails here. And cane toads, the population exploded, took off, absolutely dominates some parts of Australia, and kills off native wildlife because they're poisonous. So native wildlife eat them and they die. So not a great plan. The lady who swallowed the spider to catch the fly, so on and so forth, chasing our tails. I don't think it's a good idea. So I see stories like this and I'm like, this is bad. Fun little movie and TV series called Snowpiercer, which is kind of like this, that human beings in the future released particles into the atmosphere to stop global warming, and it created an ice age. And now for some reason, the only people that can live on a train that can't stop. That part of it, I'm like, oh, okay. Not sure why it went there, but cool. All right, what else we got going on? Iran threatens to completely destroy Tel Aviv in a new chilling video. So the Iran-Israel thing is ratcheting up. There was a counterpoint to this. I don't know if it was actually before or after this, but I did read a story where Israel was issuing a warning to... Actually, they didn't issue the warning to Iran. They were issuing it to other Western countries, saying, we're going to need to go in and utterly destroy Iran's nuclear capability. We cannot let them have nukes. So, I mean, this is not new. Israel has said that in the past, but this kind of rhetoric, this kind of back and forth is increasing tensions within this, another little flashpoint in the world. So put a pin in that one as well on your map, on your world map, as another point that could kick off at any stage. All right, what else we got here? Couple of things happen in the USA at the moment. Potential Category 4 atmospheric river is set to strike Northern California. So obviously there's a lot of weather effects that are happening within the US at the moment. We've just seen the horrific effects of some of these, what were they calling them? Blizzard bomb. Niagara Falls allegedly froze. Feet and feet and feet of snow burying people in and around places like Buffalo, upstate New York, people dying in their cars. One of the theories, by the way, of people dying in their cars is that it wasn't actually from cold, that the cars couldn't move. And because the people had no other way to stay warm, they kept their cars running. And as they were snowed in, it trapped the exhaust of the car, which killed the people. So again, keep warm stuff in your car. Keep your car prepared. Your car is part of your preparedness. It is the mobility part of your preparedness, and it should be thought of, or the way I often teach this is when I'm teaching about vehicles and such what, and I'm teaching people going overseas, the way I think about my vehicle, it is my lifeline, it is my mobile base, it is my mobile home base. So when I'm out and about, it is the next best thing I have to a home base until I can get back to my home base. So I keep things in there that that will sustain life. That's the way I think about it, and that's the way, as a preparedness-minded person, you really want to think about your vehicles in that way. Peter Rouse says, so much cloud seeding chemtrails when I was living in Los Angeles. Alpha, thanks for rocking up. Sorry I showed up late. That's all right. I've only been going for 20 minutes or so, but thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us on the YouTubes. Speaking about Buffalo, here's a report of families scrambling to find food and essentials in Buffalo following record blizzards. Looters take advantage while police are incapacitated. So a couple of things in here that's really, really important for us as preparedness-minded people, as preppers. Firstly, there's a blizzard. You don't, like, this is the kind of emergency that you don't want to be like heading out to get other things. This is why you store food, you store water, you store fuel, you store energy in your house, so that when something like this hits, you're not going down to the street and fighting with other people or looking at bare shelves going, shit, I don't have any pasta to, cook my family tonight. The other thing is, do not rely on outside sources. Anytime you're relying on any sort of extrinsic system, you are beholden to it and you are vulnerable to it failing. As we see here, police couldn't physically move around for a number of reasons. Like the roads were so blocked up with snow that they couldn't physically move around, but also they were redirected to other things like car crashes and like to shutting off certain roads. So this is another reason why you want to take your own security into your own hands as much as possible. Looters, robbers, these sorts of things, thieves, they're going to be having a heightened activity during emergencies. We always see this, and I always say this to people. There's an effect, whatever it is, an emergency effect. insert emergency here. It could be absolutely anything. Then there's the aftermath / human effect. And this is always, or almost always, more impactful than this. This is like, think about Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane hits, horrific situation. The days, weeks, months afterwards were much worse if you added it all up. And that was because of the human effect, what other human beings will do to other human beings when they see the advantage and when they're desperate. Those two things. Bad mix. So take your security into your own hands and, think about, can I show that? That's an empty one, by the way, in case anyone was wondering. It's a little pew-pew thing, but there's nothing in it. It's used to be refilled. So I mentioned this also, that the police could be redirected to doing something else. And this was the case in Buffalo, where military police, National Guard, and police were redirected, dispatched to certain areas of New York State to enforce a driving ban. So they came out and said, hey, no one can drive because the weather conditions are too bad. And, we don't believe that you're competent enough, that you as an individual are competent enough, that you would have done enough training, that you would have not done enough practice to be driving in these sort of conditions, that you would have prepared your vehicle in the right way. We don't believe that you would have. Or more to the point, the government just looks at it and goes, okay, where's the lowest common denominator in our society? Okay, this dipshit's going to crash his car and kill 50 people. So no one can drive now, regardless of the fact that you may be one of the most experienced people driving in cold weather conditions and you live in upstate New York. That doesn't matter. You're not allowed to drive because government says so. And in order to enforce that, they've redirected valuable resources, police, National Guard, military police, to enforce their rules rather than looking after the individuals from things like looters. So who's going to look after you in an emergency? That's my point here. It's just one of those little reiterations for us. Who's going to look after you in an emergency? Who cares most about your well-being and your survival situation? I would argue that nobody cares more about your survival than you. And that's why it is on you to do it. Remember those 3 R's I keep talking about: responsibility. It's on you to actually look after these things. Peter Rouse says mine are bigger. Yeah. That's just that's my mid-range. That's my 270. It's not my biggest cannon. I am upgrading. Man, I've got a lot smaller as well. I like a range. And they want to disarm you as well, says Peter Rouse. Correct. This is why we should fight against this sort of stuff. That we should say no. Like this here, what I just showed you before, I'm talking about firearms and things like that. Valuable for a couple of reasons. I'm talking about defense and stuff like that. And it's a pretty good disincentive for somebody to come into your house. All right, if someone breaks in my house and I'm standing there with nothing but my dick in my hand, or if I'm standing there with my 12 gauge in my hand, that's going to be two different scenarios that are rattling through that human being's brain right there, where they're going, oh, what's going to happen? Or is it? But also, like, I use mine for hunting, so I think that's, more to the point, why we shouldn't let these things be taken off us more than we already have in Australia and New Zealand. Alpha says, do you use your own calibers or more of the standard ones? It's a good question. I use standard ones the most. I have many rifles. I have many fine things. I have many rifles, and I do tend to, I look at what is the standards within Australia. So the most popular rounds or calibers within Australia by far is 22 LR. So I've got a 22, but 22 is not going to drop like a deer or something unless I'm a really good shot with it. So, I for mid-range sort of stuff, then one of the next sort of ones, I'm at 12 gauge as well. Yep, got the 12 gauge. One of the next ones, 223 or 5.56. So I've definitely got that. That's cheap. That the bulk ammo in that area too is very easy to access, being that has been a staple of our military for a number of years. But then I go into the bigger stuff as well. So I definitely look at, so I've got a 270, which is a rarer kind of round, but that's for a specific purpose. And I'm looking at 308 as well. So, and I'm going into reloading now, which means I can start to build my own stuff. Short answer, yeah. I think it's worthwhile thinking about this from a prepper's perspective, looking at what is most prolific in your area of the world and going, okay, I should have at least a rifle in that caliber. I think that's a good idea. Also looking at what's cost effective. For me to get something like a 30-50-22, I don't know how much that is, $35 or something. $35 won't even get me half a packet of 270. Like 270 is way more expensive. So that factors into it as well. Peter Rouse says Alpha says that's what I was getting at. Cool. Alpha also says 270 is an excellent deer round, lol, but 308 does just as fine as well. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. We had a period there where I couldn't get access to 270, and it freaked me out a bit. I was like, oh no, I don't like this. 308 abundant in Australia. That would probably be the next. It would be within the top 10, maybe even top 5 in Australia, depending on the state as well. State actually does change how many rounds or what most prolific round is used within that state in Australia. Peter Rouse says, I do a lot of reloading from custom loads. What reloader do you have? I don't have any at the moment, but I've just been, in principle, gifted some. I just have to go and collect it. So it's all older sort of stuff, but I'm just getting into that. I don't know anything about it. The person that I'm getting it off, sort of like uncle-in-law, knows everything about it. So I'm gonna go over there, learn the trade from him, and then start doing it myself. All right, moving on from pew sticks and bullets, let's jump into gold. One of my favorite subjects. I love gold and silver. I'm a big fan of it, and I think this is one of the best ways that we can lock away our savings for the future, that we can retain value throughout time. Cash is inflating, which means the value of cash is decreasing. You look at that and you look at gold, and people often say, I see this all the time, gold is doing great as an investment. I don't actually think gold is doing great as an investment. Gold is expressed in dollars, in US dollars per gold ounce. So if dollars are going down, and we know dollars are going down, it means that gold is going up. There's two values that are in gold, but the way we look at it, the way we express it, is in US dollars. So as US dollars decrease in value, gold increases in value. But gold is just gold. Gold has its value and always has had its value. Not always, probably at some point there was cave people who didn't really know what gold was. But as long as there's been civilization and recorded history that we can read, we've seen that gold has had value. So this here is an interesting one. I'm always looking at gold news. There's heaps about it, but this one caught my eye. Gold price soars in Egypt as local currency weakens. So their currency is weakening. People are freaking out. Egypt, actually all throughout like that Middle East type area, they're gold bandits. Certain parts of the world, China, India, Middle East, love their gold. I mean, everyone loves their gold, but Middle East really love their gold. So yeah, what we're seeing here in Egypt, the price of gold in Egypt has risen to unprecedented highs as nervous savers seek refuge from a weakening currency. The reason I'm putting this out is that it is very much within the realm of possibility that this can happen in Australia, in New Zealand, in the US, in UK, in Sweden, in Norway, in anywhere else from wherever you are listening from this from, because I don't know where everyone's from, but I know I do have people who listen to me from those countries. And this is within the realm of possibility of something that can happen. it's not or is happening, I should say. It's not happening at the velocity that it's happening in a place like Egypt. This is coming off the back of a number of other stories that I've read about other countries that have sought to, and I want to requote this, seek refuge from a weakening currency. That's what gold is to me. It is a refuge. It is a savings account. It is holding value over time. It's not a get-rich scheme. It's not buy in low on Bitcoin and sell it when it spikes up. Gold isn't really like that. If it does happen to do that, woohoo, great. I probably still won't sell it though. I'll probably still hold on to my stuff. I'm thinking retirement plan. I'm thinking generational wealth when I'm looking at this sort of stuff. I'm thinking my kids' kids. And that's the way I would suggest you might want to frame it in your mind as well. Peter Rouse says, Russia's been building up gold stores for pegging the ruble. We all know what happened to Gaddafi when he tried to use the gold standard. He got done. Yes, if you look at the countries that have been buying up gold, Russia and China have been one of the two largest countries gobbling up gold. China, we don't have actually a lot of solid data on how much they've done. We just know they've done a lot. Russia, we know, have done a lot. US allegedly still has orders of magnitude more than everyone else, allegedly. No one has actually verified that in a number of years. UK not only has a lot themselves, holds a lot of other countries. Again, no one has verified theirs in years. None of that is verified. It's all just theoretical gold when we come to the UK and the US at the moment. I don't think they've got none. I think it's more likely that UK would have less than they're saying than US would, because they've got a lot of other countries involved there. US does have other countries involved in their gold stores as well. But yeah, if it turns out that the US doesn't have as much, that's one of these potential, like just getting on gold, shooting to the moon for a second. That's one of the potentials that can happen here. That somebody demands that the gold is verified, and they come out and they say, yep, we don't have that much. At that point, a lot of strange things are going to happen. And one of those strange things is most likely gold will go through the roof when people realize there's not as much gold out there as they thought. They're going to like go, what? Gold, we all need to get gold now. And at that point, there'll be a massive demand. The other thing that the US can do, which they're kind of being backed into a corner at the moment in doing, is doing what Russia is attempting to do and peg the dollar to gold. Go back to some sort of gold standard or something around that. And they're going to have to do something similar to that. Eventually, people are not going to just take the goodwill, the promises, and the unicorn farts that the US have been throwing out about the US dollar. People are going to go, actually, if this is not pegged to anything, we're not pegged to it. Okay, we're not doing it. And we're already seeing the shift already. So countries are already starting to slide over to the BRICS version of trading, which is a multi-currency trading system. Whereas, the US is very much, boom, it's ours or it is nothing. So we'll see what comes from that. One of the other interesting things is if we believe how much gold the US says they have, and they came out and said, hey, we're going to peg our dollar to our gold. If you do the maths, somebody else did it for me, and I read their article. It's about 5 times what. So if you said, whatever it's going to be, gold is worth this much, what it's worth today to this much US dollars, and we look at how much gold the US says they have, then if you're doing the maths, you go, okay, and then they've got this many dollars. Well, unless they want to really weaken their dollars or totally shrink down their money supply, which they cannot do, then it's linked now to a physical amount, if that makes sense. That physical amount is going to be worth at least five times what it is now. So gold is, let's say 1800 US, 5 times that. Who can do maths? I can't, but it's a lot more, right? And I think it's at like, what would it be at? 2,500 Aussie dollaroos right now. So 5 times that, an ounce of gold would go from 2,500 to 12,500 overnight if they announce something like that. Spice Gal says, thoughts on silver? I love it. I reckon it's great. It's different. It's very different to gold, but it is it's different in a number of ways. There's much more of it. There's much more potential to pull more of it out of the ground than there is gold at this point. And silver, I think, is probably undervalued, like potentially grossly undervalued right now. Silver, unlike gold has uses in some technology and some specific uses in things that we utilize that nothing else can really do. But it's not massive, its use. Its main value is in jewelry, wearing, or itself, gold, or exchange. Silver, on the other hand, has many, many uses, industrial uses. First and foremost, I'd like to point out, is in solar panels. And I've said this before, if the plan for the new Green Deal is going to magically come about, then we're going to need that energy from somewhere, and solar is one of the leading ones at the moment, which means we're going to have to ramp solar through the roof. Not going to work, but don't worry about that. But that's going to mean more solar panels, like many, many, many more solar panels. Those solar panels are going to require silver. So silver is potentially going to go through the roof. That's just one use. Like, there's medical uses for it. There's water purification uses for it. There's heaps of different industrial and technological uses for silver, and not easily replaced either. Not easily kind of curtailed. So we've got to kind of use that at the moment. Just catching up some of these comments here. I read somewhere Australia leases its gold reserves to the UK. Yes, Australia actually stores its gold in the UK. So that's what I'm talking about. The UK reserves, many countries said, hey, can you just hold our gold because you're like solid. You guys are like number one, we're number one. And so they're like, yeah, we'll hold your gold. And then it just became, yeah, we've got your gold and here it is notionally. A number of years ago, they stopped issuing the serialization of said gold. Oh, sorry, there is a serialization. They stopped verifying it with serialization. So a serial number on the gold bars that Australia owns, for example. Well, the UK just would come out and say, we have X amount of gold. And Australia go, you got ours? And they're like, yep, cool. Serial numbers? And they're like, no, but we've got it. Australia's like, okay, that sounds good. Then Austria would come along and go, you have our gold? And they're like, yeah, serial? Don't worry about it. We got it. Cool. All right. Then, Switzerland or France would come along and go, you got our gold? Serial numbers? No serial numbers, but we've got it. Trust us. There's been rumblings now that that people are starting to go, do you have it? And some countries are actually repatriating their gold back to their country now. And in a process which is going to take 8 to 10 years in some of these countries, which I'm thinking, like, why? If I went to the UK or I went to a mate's house and I was like, hey, dude, that $300 I put under your mattress? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, you still got that? I'm like, yeah, cool. Can I grab that? Yep, no worries. It'll just be 3 months for me to get it back to you. Is that all right? I'll be like, no, it's not all right. You just told me you had it. I want it now. I'm going to go use it or store it myself. That's essentially what the UK is doing right now. There's something very fishy in the water, something very, very fishy, something going wrong in the UK. And that's one of the things that makes me believe they don't have the gold that they're saying they have. Charlie Core says, I got a lot of silver back when it was 800. Happy girl now. Apparently silver is the one thing that is going to jump. I would say this. I think the potential for silver to move more than gold is there. That's not a surprise, because silver does move more comparative to gold. But for example, if I wanted to go buy an ounce of gold right now in Australia, it would cost me maybe $2,700. If I wanted to buy an ounce of silver, it would cost me $35. Okay, so, if there's an increase there, the potential for that to increase as a percentage, I think, is higher than this, but as a value, maybe gold might still be more in its moving. Peter Rouse says USA will not allow the gold to be inspected. Maybe they only have 10% on hand. That's certainly a possibility. USA does not have the gold to use for that. Peter Rouse says 9,000. Thank you for the maths, Peter. I appreciate that. So 1,800 times 5, 9,000. Shelley 208 says silver is easier, less expensive to invest in. It will be in demand for several reasons. And that's often what I tell people too. That's where I got started. I bought some silver, just a little bit of silver. It cost me like $35 to $50. I got some. I was like, that's cool. Invest a little bit more, invest a little bit more. It's just bit by bit, save up some money. And when I feel like I can, then I'll buy some. But yeah, I got a whole video on that on YouTube if you want to check that out, or you can shoot me a message. All right, what else we got here? USA still. Local officials tell residents of Mississippi town to boil water after a pop pipe burst leading to contaminated water. Just another little news story for you there, that this sort of stuff can happen anywhere. In the US, can happen in Australia. Have water on hand. Have water on hand, or have the ability to boil water, or filtrate water, but just have fresh water on hand. It's a pretty easy thing to do. There's been a number of explosions in Russia. I haven't really talked about them too much. I've put them up every now and then, but it's probably every week at least, I would say there is an explosion. And they're usually something like this. There was an explosion at a gas pipeline. There's an explosion at a oil refinery. There's an explosion at insert whatever here. It was because of a gas leak. It was because of faulty gas. It was an electrical problem in this gas problem, blah, blah, blah. To the point where I'm like, okay, right, this doesn't seem right. Daily Mail, of all places, come out and said the CIA is behind a spate of explosions in the US. US Army Special Ops veteran claims the intelligence agency and NATO ally are conducting sabotage missions. I have no idea if that is in any way, shape, or form true. I just found it interesting because of what I just said. I'm like, there are a lot of explosions happening in Russia. You don't see them unless you look at Russian propaganda news, and the Russian propaganda news always has an explanation for it. It's always, oh, it's just an explosion. Oh, this just happened. Oh, this infrastructure got old and shitty and blew up, whatever. So it's interesting that someone's coming out now and saying, no, this is definitely CIA. I don't know. All right, last story, and then I'm going to leave you, get about your day. It's a bad one. It's the worst one, in fact, as far as I'm concerned. Growing number of people are ditching their pets and blaming inflation. This coming from the US, and this was centered around Chicago. They're seeing a dramatic increase in the amount of dumped pets, killed pets, and pets in shelters right now. People blaming inflation, saying, hey, we can't afford to feed these animals right now. This one, if you've ever heard me talk about animals before, you'll know how I feel about this. I'm fucking irate about it. I hate this sort of shit. And I like people who just dump their pets. It bemuses me. I cannot understand it. I like can't wrap my head around it. There's certain people in this world that I can't fathom how they think, how they get to that point. And this is one of them. This is an example of one of those people. I'm like, did you not ask anyone? Did you not ask around? Did you not put something up on Facebook or on Craigslist or, wherever you're from, whatever mechanism you've got, saying, hey, I've got a dog and I cannot look after it. Can somebody please help? There are people out there who will take on dogs that are in a bad way. There are people who will look after dogs. There are temporary homes for dogs. Dumping animals is not an option. Furthermore, I always like to point these animal things out, because I believe this is one of those blind areas that preppers often forget about: your pets. Please do not forget about your pets. I have bulk dog food stored up for my dogs. They will not go hungry. Part of my plan for long-term sustainment, if something was to go wrong in our society, like societal collapse, is hunting. And part of that hunting is feeding my animals. They provide many, many things to me. They provide security for our home. They bark. One of them's a German Shepherd who is like the biggest wuss I have ever come across as far as a dog goes. But damn, does she look intimidating if someone's coming to the door. So, they're providing protection, that they provide love, they provide joy, they provide mental stability for me and my family. So they provide so many things. They're an essential part of our family, and I will not let them ever suffer any more than the rest of us are. So if you've got pets, please prep for your pets as well. Peter Rouse says they're the kind of people that also will sell their children. People do that? People sell their children? Unlimited rabbits here in New Zealand for the animals. Same here, like heaps of rabbits in Australia, and especially in my area. Plenty for the dogs to eat. They ain't going hungry. That's all there is to it. So remember to prepare for yourself, because things go wrong. Remember to prepare for your animals, just in case. All right, gang. Thank you very much for joining me again. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the comments on YouTube and on Instagram. I really appreciate it. Specifically, I just throw out some names at random: SpiceGal27, Charlie, Cause, Reagan, Peter Rouse, Alpha, Shelley. Thank you very much. Shelley, just one last comment here. I'm with you with the pets. Too many people adopted pets during 2019 days. Also, and then lost interest in them. Sickening. I have at least 3 months food storage for my pets. Perfecto. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, too many people got locked in their homes by their silly governments, and then decided, like, I can't deal with myself. I don't like myself. How can I fix this? Oh, get a pet. And then all of a sudden go back to work and like, I don't have time for this fucking thing. I'm getting rid of it. Well, just so you know, if you're one of those people, I'd like to get rid of you. Not sorry. That's just the way I feel. All right. Thank you very much. As I was saying, if you've got any questions, please feel free to shoot them through to me. I will attempt to get some actual videos up, like some more professionally shot videos up on the YouTube channel. I've just been real slack with that. And I've got to do it because people are looking back into my older catalog and, doing the usual armchair general type stuff from their mom's basement and making shitty comments on YouTube. So I've got to keep those people entertained. So I'll put some more videos up there so they've got something else to complain about, because I don't know what they would do if they couldn't complain about my videos. No, but there's heaps of things I've been meaning to do. Obviously, my time's, more valuably used right now with my new addition to my family. So, but I'll get there. All right, gang, stay safe out there. Keep prepping. If you can, get in the garden. And as always, Semper Paratus.